All right, so let's talk about lifting up state, all right, which is a technique that's very useful. So essentially, let's look over at what components we have. So I'm doing the contacts exercise, and we've got three components: contact list, contact card, and contact form. So what you can think about it this way is contact list is the parent element, is parent component of the contact card and the contact form. So what I mean by that is if you look in contact list, you'll notice that I've got contact form here and contact card here. Right? So we've already know how to like do a list view. So we do contacts.map. We have a list of we have an array of contacts in the state of the component, and then we render, a contact card for each contact, which makes sense for just listing them out. And so we've got two basic things going on here. So I'm running it now. So if you take a look, you got the form up top, which is the contact form for allowing the person to type in some information to add a new contact. And then below we have some contact cards, which displays the information and then has some buttons to edit and delete them. All right. So what we can do is we have a little bit of a conundrum, right? Because props, we need some data flow here, right? What I mean by that is, if you think about it, this whole thing is contact list. Contact list is parent to both contact card and new contact form. Okay, cool. So if I'm in the form and I fill out the first name, the last name, the mobile phone number, that information has to go from the contact form up to the contact list component. Props are great for going from a parent to a child. In fact, they're not just great for it, that's what you use for that situation. But props are not used from going from a child to a parent, okay? So when we go from a child to a parent, we need to use a technique called lifting up state. And it's actually very simple. It relies on an understanding of what a callback function is. A callback function is a function that, it very simply put, that we're going to essentially run it later. Okay, so we're gonna have a function. We're gonna set everything up, but we're gonna be like, hey, I don't really want to like run the function right now. I want to delay when I run the function until later. All right, so let's get into the code. You'll kind of see what I mean. All right, so let's go over the contact form. All right, couple things. First off, if you're not using a library, typically for libraries, there's like a React form library that you would use because it's a little bit better than the out of the box stuff. But for right now, it's fine. I have a state in my contact form component for each of the different things I want them to put in. So first name, last name, mobile phone number, they're all strings. All right, so we already know how to do state for a component. And then I'm going to go into my form. All right, so I've got input, text input. And the thing to remember with forms is that for each box you want the person to fill out, you're going to have a variable in state. So for example, I've got an input. I'm using Bootstrap, by the way, to make everything like look a little bit better. Um, and then here is the form for first name and last name and mobile phone number. Um, Notice how I have on change. So for the input, we're gonna do on change, and then so far when we did like on click, we just did like a empty parentheses. You can put a variable in here, and that'll be the event. Because we go way back when we did vanilla JavaScript. Remember events? Okay, like were triggered when people would do something. We had an event listener for like clicking or submitting a form. Well, we don't have to set all that right now. You can just grab the event. So we're going to do of on change equals squiggly brackets e, and then I'm using this function set first name, which came from my state, and I put e.target.value. So if you hover over e, it's a change event. And if you remember target and value, that comes way back when we were doing the DOM manipulation in vanilla JavaScript. That told us what element on the page were you interacting with. So what this will do is says, okay, cool. When the person types something into the box, all right. So let me switch over. Okay, so when I type something into the box, with like this one. Okay, as I'm typing, every time I type, that function gets called, that on change function. Okay, and then it will take what the person types and saves it in that state variable. So it's convenient. Okay, so where you see on line 27, on change set first name, e.target.value, what I'm typing is e.target.value. The target is the input box. The value is what I'm actually typing in, which in this case is Jonathan. All right, we do the same thing for set last name. We do the same thing for phone. Cool thing, just a little like trick you can do for phone numbers. I did like max length 12. You can do a little bit of validation if you'd like. Okay. Um, we're gonna go. This is more of a pattern. Like what numbers do you want in there? It's just something fancy. You can try it out and look it up later. On change, set mobile, e.target that value. So they're all basically saving what the person types in state. Okay. So you're probably like, okay, cool, Jonathan. We've got what they type, but then how do we actually do anything when they submit the form? All right. So we've got this button, and I put type equals submit, and that's important because when you do a button with type submit and it's inside a form, the computer will know that when you click on it, you mean to submit the form. Okay, that's the whole point. Up here in the form, we have on submit for the event, and then I'm telling it to run a function I wrote called on submit. All right, now here is the conundrum. Here's our on submit function. It takes an event, a form event, so E of the type react.form event HTML form element, which just love TypeScript types. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, cool. We filled out the form, we passed validation. Like, how is this data going to get from contact form all the way up to contact list? Because contact form, as you can see here, is a child of contact list. So we know how to go from parent to child. In fact, contact card is a child, and we can send props. Okay, we can send our contact props straight there. But contact form is a child of contact list. So how do we get data from here up to here? All right, well, that's actually fairly simple. Okay, we're going to need some props. Okay, so I got some contact form props, and it's going to be a function. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have the parent send a function down to the child. Okay, a callback function. Basically, it's a function that you like write, and then the child will call it at a later date. We're going to call this callback function when the person submits the form. So I use an interface. I just call it set context. What kind of thing is this? Function with a capital F. Okay, functions are values in JavaScript. So let's make use of that. So I will do inside here props, contact form props. Okay, now what are we going to do with this? All right, in on submit, what I'm going to do is say, okay, cool. Now I'm going to run the function that was passed in from the parent. So then I'm going to do props dot set contacts. Okay, now you're wondering, well, Jonathan, what is this set contacts? Where did this come from? I'll explain in a second. Okay, this function we're going to run, and we're going to run this function, and we're going to give it basically an object with this data. So for example, we'll make an object, and I'm going to do first name is Bob. First name actually is first name, excuse me. So last name is last name. So I'm just using the variables from the state. And mobile is mobile. All right, now, here's the thing. We had a function passed in from the parent in the props. The child, which in this case is contact form, has access to this function. On submit, we're going to call this function, and it will go back up to contact list. This is what I call my lifting up state. One thing I forgot to do here is we had to do e.prevent default, okay, to keep the form from refreshing. All right, so now let's kind of see this in action. So what we're going to do is we're going to do in contact form. Now it's giving me these red squigglies because it's like, hey, I'm missing some props. Okay. One thing we do need to do is do something with this ID because it needs to be unique. So let me do that real quick. All right, we should be good there. I forgot we need to update the ID. So whenever we make a new contact, we're gonna have to look at the highest ID of the contacts already listed and then give this one the next highest. So for example, this will be 4 for the next one that comes in. All right, so we got this helper function. So now I'm going to do a function called add new contact. All right, add new contact, which is going to take in let me look at my thing. Did I do it number? Let's make this ID. Let's make this nullable. All right. So that's gonna make forgot. It's gonna make it angry. All right. Cool. That's fine. All right. So add new contact is going to take in a contact singular. There's no array here. We're just one. All right, and then we're going to essentially call set contacts to add the new contact in. So we'll do set contacts, and then we're going to do, remember we're doing functional programming. We don't do push, we don't mutate the state, we just replace it. So I will use a spread operator to put contacts in here. And then after that, we're going to put an object. Before that, we need to set the ID. So actually, before this line, we're going to do contact.id is equal to get next ID. I want this here. Okay, yeah, I think I do. All right, and then we'll put contact at the end. And then what we'll do is we will take this function, add new contact, and pass it in as a prop to contact form. All right, so I'm a stickler, so I don't want, if I name the function this, the prop should be named after it. So let's go back to contact form. Right, and I'm just going to change the name. All right, sweet. All right, so then we're going to do add new contact equals add new contact. All right, so here's what's happening. In the parent, I create a function. This function will basically make a new contact and add the contact to my list of contacts. But at this point in time, I really don't know any information that would actually go in this function, right? Because we're in the parent. But the parent can say, okay, cool, I've got this function. Well, in JavaScript, functions are values, so you can pass them around. So you can be like, hey, contact form, here's a function I'm going to call you back later when I want you to, like, when you run it. Okay, that's what callback is. We run it later. So you say, okay, cool, here's a function. You give it to the contact form. Call me back when you want to, like, actually do something. So the contact form is cool. Okay, great. In my props, I have add new contact, which is a function. And then the child knows when to run it. So the child will say, cool, on submit, I will do add new contact and then fill in all the information I got from the form. That will go back up to the contact list here, and then this will be filled out with whatever was in the form. Because we can pass this function around, we can let the necessary component know, hey, this function exists, and you can go ahead and fill the information. Then call me back when you're done. All right, so then contact form will basically call the function here. Okay, and then it will come back up to line 22 and then do everything else. So that way we've had data that started off in contact form, which is a child, and we took its state and lifted it up to contact list. All right, let's give this an actual try, see if it works. All right, let me refresh. There we go. All right, so first name is Jonathan, last name's Hop, mobile phone number is 8675309. Okay. 867. I need an area code, so we'll do 123. Right, and there we go. I hit submit, and you'll see a new contact card with my name and the phone number. All right, so we can try this a couple more times. We'll put Danny DeVito. Right, now notice that again, this form is not in the contact list like directly, right? It's its own component. So we had to go take data from this form that I typed in, right? And we had to lift it up to its parent. So we went from contact form, okay, up to contact list. The way we did that was we had a function in contact list, okay, that was going to do what we needed to do. I needed to add new contact to my array of contacts. But I have, from contact list perspective, it doesn't know what data it should put in here because it's not a form. It says, cool though, I can take this function and pass it down as a prop to the child component. Like, here you go. Here's your brand new shiny function. Call me back later, okay, when we actually want to run it. Well, contact form will know when to run it. It's on submit, okay? So I'm doing an on submit function saying, hey, when the person clicks submit in the form, first prevent default, and then go ahead and run that function that was passed down, except with this stuff, all this information I've got here, okay, which came from the form. All right, so that's basically what lifting up state is. You're basically it's a great way of going from a child up to the parent by using a callback function. You make a function the parent to do whatever you want to do. You're going to pass that function as a prop to the child, and the child will call the function with the information. They'll go back up. It's also a great way to be for two sibling components to be able to communicate with each other with the parent as the medium. Okay, and as you saw, okay, every time I filled in a new person in the contact form, the list updated, right? So we had a new contact card because the state of the contact list updated, and so we were able to create as many of these new cards as we feel like. So I can put something else, and I can put like let's Tony Hawk. Okay, and there we go. So the contact list keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? And that is how you lift up state.